So welcome to the podcast. And today I have a very special guest who's also a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Oliver J.R. Cooper, um, transformational writer, author, article writer, coach. Um, I'll tell you what, rather than let me speak about you, perhaps you will introduce yourself at this point, Oliver.
How you doing, Wayne? Great to be here. Great to finally get down to this because we've been thinking about doing this for maybe a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. So, yeah, I'm Oliver J.R. Cooper, author, writer and coach. And I've been writing now for just over 7 years. I have 16 books out, just under 2,000, couple of hundred under 2,000 articles now.
2,000 articles?
Yeah, just about, maybe 200 or 300 shy of 2,000 articles. So gradually getting to the next milestone, which will be 2,000. So, and then of course I've got videos and then there's a coaching that I offer too. So plenty to keep me busy.
Well, one of the first questions I want to ask, and I'm sure the listeners will want to know,
Yeah.
is, you've written so many articles, close to 2,000, 16 books.
Yes.
What is your overall motivation for writing so much?
Good question, but not a question that there's one answer to. So in the beginning, I simply wanted to get my views out into the world, and because I didn't plan to be an author or writer all those years ago, I just simply wanted to share my views. And then it just went from writing maybe one a week, maybe not even one a week, and then after a little while, it then ended up being maybe a couple a week. And after that point, it ended up writing every day. And sometimes I've done 2 a day. So the articles have just flowed, really, and then the more I've focused on it, the easier it's been for me to come up with ideas about what I want to write about. So back to your question, yeah, it's definitely self-expression. It's also helped me to understand myself through putting things into words and to be acknowledged as well. Part of me was also looking for that recognition, to be noticed and to receive the feedback that I'm actually can do something, that I'm actually good at something, because at the time I didn't feel as though I could really do anything. I mean, there are certain things like, for example, being outside and doing a bit of gardening or something like that, or even speaking to people. I've always been quite good doing that, but there wasn't like one thing that I thought, yeah, I'm really good at that. Like, for example, many years ago, my friends were going to university, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because it wasn't clear. And I didn't really do very well at school. So it wasn't as if I was even going to go to university myself, because that just wasn't an option. So for up to that point, before I started writing, I was looking for something that I could do, something that I could offer. So to have found something with my articles and the coaching that I do, to have found something like that was, for me, was massive. I felt extremely grateful that I'd found something that I can do and I could offer something like other people.
And so, I mean, how long have you been writing now?
Just over 7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah, and I had a journal for about 2 years before that.
Right. And do you find the feedback you've received so far? I mean, was it as you expected, or?
Well, at the beginning, I wasn't really expecting anything. It was simply just get these words down onto Word and then onto the internet, and it simply went from there. But I've had lots of feedback. Overall, the feedback has been very good. The biggest, or perhaps the main response that comes to mind is when someone said that after he read an article on child abuse, it stopped him from taking his life, which was massive for me to hear that it could have that kind of effect on people. And then since then, I've received probably hundreds, maybe, more than a few hundred comments and emails of people just extremely grateful talking about how it's as if I've written something specifically for them, and as if I was speaking to them, personally. So it's been incredible to have this kind of effect on the world.
So, I mean, that leads me on to my next question, really. You've written an awful amount of articles.
Yeah.
And again, the 16 books.
Yeah.
Do they all take the shape of a particular theme? Or are they all varied? Like, what is the general theme, if there is one?
Yeah, the first three, or the first two books, or let me say that again, I've got 3 books on poetry, kind of spiritual, just kind of dialogue, called A Dialogue with a Heart, and then the 2 of them are called A Dialogue with a Heart, and the third one is A Dialogue with the Spirit, and the first book I put together was A Dialogue with a Heart. So after that point, I then put 2 books together, and they're quite general. I mean, one is about trapped emotions, another is about childhood. So although it is about a specific area, they're quite general. And then after then, I've put books together that are more specific. So there's one on trapped grief, another one on toxic shame, another one on the fear of abandonment, another one on boundaries. So they're very specific books. So if someone has got an issue with one emotion, or something in their life is causing them problems, they can just home in to that book, because it'd be about that specific challenge in their life. And I think that is a better way of doing things, because less pages as well, so it's easier then for someone to actually get through it.
So would you say, I mean, if we had to put your articles and books into a category, would that category be classed as self-development?
I would say it's more self-help, because to me, self-development is more trying to develop yourself, kind of adding this, adding that. And this is more about taking away. So it's not really about adding or saying affirmations or adding different positive thoughts or whatever. Or becoming more positive is part of dealing with our own issues and baggage. But it's more about letting go than it is about adding things.
Right. And I guess the consequence of that is self-development to a degree.
That's it.
And I mean, the next question I was going to ask was, what are you hoping your readers will get from your material? But I feel you've probably answered that in the question in your previous answer.
Yeah, I mean, just to summarise, I think the main thing is for someone to understand, to assist someone in understanding themselves better, and to give them the tools that they need to go beyond the understanding to the transformation. So it's not just information, it's also transformation too. So the first step would be becoming aware, and someone is often going to be aware of different things already, which is why they would have bought the book, but then becoming even more aware of what's going on, and then tracing it down to perhaps childhood abuse or neglect, some kind of trauma, and then what they can do then to move beyond these symptoms, so their whole life is not just a reflection of their past, of their trauma, so they can live a life that is worth living, ultimately.
Right, okay. I fully understand. Now, please don't take this question in a way other than intended, but there are tons of sort of self-help, self-development, psychology books out there. What makes you stand out, or why should people kind of read into what you produce?
I think now it'd be easy for me to blow my own trumpet here and say how great my work is, and I think it is great. However, I think it comes down to whatever someone is drawn to. So if they're drawn to my work and they think that's going to assist them, that's all well and good. But if they're drawn to someone else's, then perhaps that work might be better for them than mine is. So I'm not someone who's going to say, oh, you better read my stuff and mine's the only stuff that's good on this planet and everyone else's work is poor in comparison. No, I think it's all about someone's drawn to my work, then they go for that, because there's been the challenges I've overcome myself. There's been the courses and healing work that I've done. There's been all the books that I've read, the clients that I've worked with, and the conversations I've had. So there's many different sources that play into the conclusions that I've come to. So I think if someone is drawn to my work, great, but I'm not going to say you better look at my stuff. It's like being a door-to-door salesman, going around to someone's house. Come on, this is great. You better buy this. This is the best in the business. No, if they're drawn to it, they are. If they're not, that's okay. We all have a part to play on this earth.
Interesting. I guess that leads me on to another question. So 2,000 articles, 16 books. Are you looking to
just under 2,000. Yeah.
Just under 2,000, sorry.
About another year until I get to 2,000.
Right. So, I mean, in a way, you've sort of answered my next question. The next question was going to be, are you looking to continue writing articles, continuing to churn out books, or are you going to put all this information perhaps in a different format? I mean, I noticed you've done a few videos. Are you looking to, how do you see yourself going forwards over the next few years?
Good question. I think there will always be articles. I'm sure there will always be books as well. I mean, I'm open-minded, really. As long as I have the opportunity to share my views and to get my thoughts out there, that's the main thing. So perhaps in the future there I might do some kind of talks or even retreats that we've spoken about. You're obviously talking about doing them as well. So maybe as time goes on, there will be giving talks around the world, different retreats, somewhere warm, because I'm not a fan of the cold British weather. So somewhere warm to do these retreats, and then like we're doing now with the podcast, so more audio books probably as well. So yeah, I'm open to all possibilities.
Okay, so you're keeping your options open at this
That's it.
point. Obviously, we've discussed your your writings, your books, but just a few questions about you now, really. If you hadn't have gone down this path, what do you think you would have been doing with your time?
So do you mean if I hadn't got into self-development or
Yes.
Yeah, funny you say that, because I was thinking about it earlier on. Well, the first mentor I had, and this is a woman that I met at the end of 2002. This woman was psychic and did NLP and hypnotherapy and Reiki healing, all kinds of different techniques and tools she had. And she said when she met me, a few years after she met me, she said, she was surprised that I've made it, because she said I was so sensitive that she didn't think I was going to make it. And, looking at the fact that I've come from a very low place emotionally, I felt depressed and suicidal and been at rock bottom. So when I look at that and the fact that I didn't have any kind of idea about what I was going to do in life, I mean, it's very hard to say. I think if I'd have gone the traditional route, I probably would have been plied with all these drugs by now and been walking around in a very numb, disconnected way. So there's a chance I could have been full of drugs. Perhaps I might have even taken my own life. Perhaps I could even be, according to this woman, I might even be in some kind of institution. Who knows? It's very, very hard to say. Or, again, I could just be walking around feeling very depressed and very disconnected and very lost. So I think, it's very hard to say. Very hard to say. I don't think I would have been in a great place, because I just wasn't in a great place then. I think it only would have got worse. Okay. So I feel very fortunate that I found the writing and the assistance of all the mentors and healers I've worked with, because without them, there wouldn't be Oliver J.R. Cooper now. Not in the same way, at least.
Interesting, very fair point. I can understand. So at this point, how can people get hold of you, buy your books and read your articles?
The best thing for them to do would be to go to www.oliverjrcooper.co.uk. Everything is on there, that's the main site. And from there, people can then follow me on different social media accounts. They can find my books on Amazon and go onto YouTube as well for the videos. So that's, and as well finding out about the coaching that I offer. So that's the best way to do it, to go onto that site.
Okay. at this point, what I'm going to do is bring the interview to a close. But this was a very short one. But going forwards, there'll be a lot more. We're going to definitely have you back. We're going to talk about certain subjects. We're going to find out a little bit more about you. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed, and I think the listeners are going to enjoy understanding you a little bit more and hearing what you do. But yeah, until the next time, Mr. Oliver J.R. Cooper, we'll talk soon.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Wayne, for taking the time to interview me today, and looking forward to where we go with this, and in the future for me to ask you a few questions too, because there's no doubt that you've got a big year, a big future ahead of you too, with all this self-development and all the videos that you do. So, talk to you soon.
No worries. Talk to you soon.